Hey, Chetco, how you doing, buddy? You're wetter than I am, surprisingly. Well, it is a wet and rainy day here on the Big Hole River in southwest Montana, but I'm gonna use the dark cloud cover and this off color, it's just a little tinted water, to be able to hide and get in close to the fish. And today, I'm gonna use a fiberglass fly rod made quite a while ago. I'd say in the early 70s, easily, maybe in the late 60s, when the South Bend White Knight fiberglass fly rod was made. And it's the full flex of a fiberglass rod that I really enjoy, and it was originally designed to reproduce bamboo rods, a love of mine. You can see that metal ferrule looks a lot like the joint on a bamboo rod. But the sensitivity designed into these old glass rods is gonna help me detect dragging the bottom with stonefly nymphs, whether it's dragging the bottom or being taken actively by a fish. It's that sensitivity in a fiberglass rod that we're gonna drag the bottom with a set of nymphs in this off-colored high water of the Big Hole River. The water is so high that it's flooding a lot of this riparian vegetation affected directly by the water. And so I've got a slope of soil banks and grass to stand on, and I can expect to see trout right off this drop, right where the grass hits the rocky bottom of the river channel. And it's here and tight in these high water conditions where I'll start first and then work my way out deeper. Like literally, that's about a 12-foot cast. Just watching the leader for any, there was a take. First cast, we get a bump. Out of the willows and back into the river. Probably a whitefish, judging by the subtle bump. But in a gray, rainy day, there we go, second cast. Holding my line tight, fishing right in close to the bank. And it is a whitefish, in fact, feeding on stonefly nymphs. Beautiful native fish. Silvery like a bullet. Well, the bullets that the Lone Ranger used. Silver bullet, little native Rocky Mountain whitefish. Second cast, I hooked it. First cast, I got a signal. And all I'm doing is just fishing in real tight to the banks because this high water is flooding a lot of vegetation, which gives the fish cover, and it gives the insects cover too. So the fish are moving in a little tighter to stay out of the heavy current, and they're gonna be in where the food is. And with these gray clouds and a little bit of rain, I can actually stay hidden a lot better. This is starting off to be just a wonderful day fishing a classic fiberglass rod, the White Knight, made by South Bend in probably the early 70s. This rod's older than I am. This fiberglass rod gave me all the sensitivity I needed where I can literally feel the fish grab the fly. We're gonna keep at it right in tight and see what we can entice out of these flooded waters. In today's episode, I'm fishing a fiberglass fly rod. And a great part of the enjoyment of the sport of fly fishing for me is as a custom rod maker, I can design rods and make rods to fit the exact water conditions that I love to fish. But part of that is by fishing historic rods, first to see what's been done in the past, and then I can modify them. I can even strip the blank down and start from scratch to make them fish exactly how I want. But I wanted to explain a little bit more about fiberglass fly rods because they're not really that popular of a material anymore, graphite being the most popular material. But I wanted to explain to you a little bit more about the material and the rods themselves so that you can appreciate today's episode all the more fully. On any graphite or fiberglass rod is what's called a mandrel. And this is a steel rod. You can see it's finely tapered. This is a tip mandrel. So this sets the taper and the action of a fly rod. From here, thick to thin. And what they do is a maker will take a fiberglass cloth that has an epoxy binder in it, and they'll wrap it, kind of skipping a step, but for illustration purposes, you'll end up with a tube, and then you put a shrink wrap kind of plastic binder out over the cloth, which holds it to the mandrel. Stick the mandrel and the cloth in an oven, bake it at a high temperature, and it combines all those layers of fiberglass and epoxy. And then once it cools, you pull it out of the oven and you have a tube of glass, pop that mandrel out, and there you go, there's a blank section. They don't start out with any particular colors, however. What they come out of the oven as is just a hollow white tube. This is more or less a raw fiberglass blank that's been sanded. You have to sand those wrap finishes that leaves a ridge on there. You sand that off, you have a nice smooth tube, and now you can add pigments and epoxy to finish the rod if you'd like, or just leave it white and fish her that way. So here's a butt section of a fiberglass rod, a raw blank. Once you're done with the raw blank, you can add pigments and you can start adding design factors. There's an orange blank, and this has a spigot ferrule, a little spigot of raw fiberglass sticking out there. Or, in this 4-piece fiberglass rod, you have the female, just a little bit wider taper there, and it just fits over the male section of the first mid tip section, like that. So there's 2 different ferrule designs that cast different, they fish different. That's a different feeling rod just because of how they're joined. And you'll even see in some of the old style, some of the first fiberglass rods that came out, before they really refined the ferrule design, they just went with the old metal ferrules, just like the old bamboo rods, and you'd stick them together with a metal joint. Then you start attaching hardware. Here's a blank. I just have cork rings that are filed out, sanded out, so that they fit precisely onto the blank. And this is what makes your handle. You glue them together, press them in a vise, and soon that glue will set and you'll have something to hold on to. Once you turn it on a lathe, at least this is how I do it, and then, oh, that's a bamboo blank. Get those confused sometimes. Once you get your glue together, you can spin it on a lathe and you can file and sand it to shape so that it just fits your hand just perfectly, however you desire. You can see on this blank, I've got my guides on and I've wrapped it and applied 1 coat of epoxy to set the thread. And these are the tag ends for my trim wraps, which are generally about 3 wraps of silk thread. So I leave the tags on there, epoxy it, and then I'll cut those tags off so they're flush with the finish. And then I can continue applying my finish until it builds up into a beautiful luster. Here's one that's a little bit more finished out, a couple more coats of epoxy to go on this. It was sanded down too much. This is a prototype rod blank that got thrown away, so I just built off of it just to practice with it. And you can see the weave, all those light spots are where the weave of the fiberglass cloth got hit by the sander, and it made a white spot taking the pigment off, and the red that's left is where the pigment settled. So it would inhibit the action a little bit, but with that epoxy binder on top, it's just fine as far as the strength and flexibility. But here's a custom blank with a custom rod, put a spigot ferrule in there. And this is one of the projects I'm working on. And the more I build and the more I fish fiberglass, the more I learn to love it. I was actually introduced to fiberglass rods by my father at age 7 when I started casting in his backyard, and later kind of put it to the side as I got into graphite, like a lot of people, and then came back to it when I was introduced to fiberglass in the modern age by Cameron Mortensen of the Fiberglass Manifesto. And you can check out his webpage. He blogs a lot about fiberglass and a lot of fiberglass makers. And it was a great source of information for me to actually fish with him on the Grays River during the Cuddython event, where we wade upstream for 27 miles and fish our favorite rods. He had fiberglass, I had bamboo with my buddy, and we had a chance to cast each other's rods. We had a great time. And after that moment, I went back, learned from some of the master rod makers, Tom Morgan, Glenn Brackett, Sam Druckman, a great rod designer who's now passed. And I now have the opportunity to fish, cast, and make just about any type of rod I would like to. Fiberglass is definitely one of the materials I love, and I'll continue fishing it as long as I can. What rod do we use today? This one is a nice heavy South Bend. I think I'll take this one down to the river and see if we can't find any insects to imitate. And we'll see what characteristics this rod has to offer. Working my way out now. I've got a couple of fish already in close, missed a couple. So I can expect everything immediately in front of me is probably put off the feed, at least briefly. So I'm gonna cast out just a little ways farther, 25 feet, and fish different water where I can find different individuals feeding. See the full flex all the way down into this grip. It's a very bendable rod, but then once you get up in this tip is where it's super sensitive, and this is where the fly angler, myself today, gets most of his or her information right there, that tip. This is where I can feel a fish, or a rock, gunk, 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 and it's that flex in this big hollow tube of fiberglass that helps me feel all the differences in those vibrations. And it's a trait in fiberglass that I enjoy quite a bit. And it'll keep me coming back to fiberglass as long as they keep making the material. There's the bottom. I can just feel the ticking. Oh, there we go. Whew. It's gone. Well, it almost landed on my lap, but that was another little feisty brown. And all I wanted to do on that one was really fool it. It was a little guy, but it fought with a big heavyweight attitude. Leaping out of the water. A very uncommon brown trout characteristic. Back to the depths of the river. Whoa, there we go. Oh yeah! Leaping out of the water. That looked like a brownie. Funny, oh yeah, there we go. Always get a little excited when the fish are excited. And leaping brown trout, it's definitely something to make you smile on a rainy day. Oh wow. Took the same fly as the whitefish, only fought with a little bit more gusto. Oh, what a beautiful speckled trout. Look at this guy, just fat and healthy, eating stonefly nymphs. Living the good life here on the Big Hole. And we'll be into more big hole fish right after this. Native whiteys and wild brownies all over on a rainy day. Makes it feel like the sun's shining. That's saying a lot on a day like today. It's a leaping whitefish. They're just stacked at the head of this pool, feeding on stonefly nymphs, every single one of them. Just at the head of this riffle, fast water that whitefish, like this one, hang in to find drifting insects. In this case, the stonefly nymph. And again, that's a big fly in a little mouth. That thing's gonna go right back to doing what it does best. Feeding on insects like that one. There's the natural insect, there's a fake insect, and I brings to my hand many trout and a few whitefish. This flat water in the big hole of the Big Hole can can make the fish very particular about what they're eating. So a large part of the game here is to present my fly accurately and to begin with delicately so I can fool them into feeding. The benefit to the rain is that it'll keep the fish from being too spooky, and I should be able to get relatively close and be able to slap the water a little bit more should they need our eyes. But I think the delicate casting nature of this fiberglass rod is sure gonna help give the delicate presentations I need. We're getting a nice drift out there and a smooth and even current. I'm fishing a clear strike indicator to help me see these emerging insect imitations that I'm fishing with soft hackles. I can see the cliff swallows cruising around on the surface, so I know there's insects out there. But I'm not really seeing much for fish rises. Every once in a while I'll see one. So I'm sticking with the subsurface emergers, thinking that somewhere between the bottom and the top we'll find some feeding fish. Because I know there's insects out because of the birds, but I also know the fish are a little bit deeper in the water because I'm not seeing any rise forms. This flat water can be really difficult because the fish can see anything disturbing the surface and they get spooky. Oh, there's another take. Yep, there's a school of them out there. Really delicate takes. It's taken a lot of drifts and a few fly changes. Meanwhile, the sun has come out and given me a little bit of a respite from that rain, but it looks like clouds are rolling in again. We'll see if we can't sneak a fish in here before the rain picks up again. Ooh. Snag some grass behind me and we're back out with a roll cast. Just gonna get right inside this seam here. And, oh, felt just a slight tug almost instantly. I mean, it was just getting that line in position and they were out in this little arm of current coming off this grass, but man, I really had to work for this, and it's a whitey, a native for sure, the Big Hole and a lot of other Southwest Montana rivers. But man, I tell you what, that's a lot of work in this flat water, in this bright sunlight. It looks like there's another bout of thunderstorms. Kiss the lady. Another bout of thunderstorms coming through, so I'm gonna get out of here. And there's some rougher water downstream where I know I can find something a little more interesting. Hopefully I can get there before the rain picks up again, but it looks pretty gray. It's been a tough bout in this upper stretch in the Big Hole. Chetco's got all cooled down in the muddy. We're ready to find some more of the Big Hole River, but on the edge of the Big Hole. This looks like a good spot. There's a fish right there. Right there. On the edge of the current. It's taken some work, but I sure found a pot of whitefish. Oh no! Just when I think I'm into native whitefish, I have a much rarer native right here. Look at this beautiful fish. And look at how it flips. This is the incredibly rare, ouch, fly in the angler's finger. Look at this beautiful fish. Oh, this is the incredibly rare big hole grayling. Look at that adipose fin. Boom. Just like a sail. I'm gonna give you just that brief look. Get it right back into the water I found it in. They, the only native fluvial grayling, which means that they live in a big river and then spawn in a small river when they're ready to do such. This is a magnificent fish. I just gave you that brief look, but you can see that big fan of an adipose fin. This river, the Big Hole River in southwest Montana, is their last holdover spot. This is it. They've been transported out now into their ancient waters and some other water, but this is the last holdout that they had where they were able to spawn successfully. That makes this section all worthwhile. There's a storm brewing. I think I'm gonna have to get out of here. Head downstream to a canyon, hopefully before the thunder strikes up in this open valley. That big hole grayling, native grayling, oh, that makes the trip. We'll see what happens next though.